So we've just done ward off left and ward off right. So we finished up here. The next move is going to be rollbacks, okay? So after I do the ward off, I'm going to bring my left hand up underneath as if I'm forming a ball. I'm going to sink back, turn back to the right, and that draws the ball back. Shift the weight forward, ball springs forward. Roll back, down and back past the hip. Left hand comes to the top, ball springs forward. Shift the weight back, turning to the right. Roll back right. Shift the weight forward and roll back left. Okay? So that's the rollbacks. Essentially, what the rollbacks are taking this ball and just turning. The ball stays in front of my torso, but I'm turning and rolling the ball back to each side. Okay? But it gets a little complicated because we've got this weight shift in here too. It's easier if I just stand here, ball comes forward, roll it back to the left, ball comes forward, roll it back to the right. Ball comes forward. One thing you'll notice, if we do this very simply here, the ball is staying right in front of my torso the whole time. So I'm not doing this where I'm rolling the ball back next to my torso. It's that I'm turning the torso and the ball is rolling over. All right, I bring it back to the front. I turn the torso, ball is rolling over. Okay? So you might want to practice this a few times, seeing if you can keep your arms right in front of your torso. When you move the ball forward, it's like you're always carrying the ball forward. When you're turning back, it's like the ball is rolling back each time you turn back. You come forward, carry the ball forward. Turn back, roll the ball back. Forward and back. Okay? So when we talked about the bow stance, we talked about knee health a little bit. A reminder, when you do this, you don't want to let the knee collapse in. You don't want to twist the knee or torque the knee. We're going to keep the knees lined up with the toes. We don't want to twist. Okay? So, roll back and forward. Roll back and forward. Roll back and forward. Now, even though the move happens in that direction, let's start off doing it in this direction. So we're going to get into a right bow stance. Left foot at a 45-degree angle, right foot pointing in the direction we want to go. So now we're going to skip the turning and we're going to come at this from a different perspective. So let's go from ward off, okay? Hold the ball in front of you. I want you to sink back and bring the ball forward. Sink back and bring the ball forward, okay? Arms are staying right in front of the torso. You'll also notice that I'm not bringing the ball back and forward. I'm sinking back and bringing the ball forward. So the ball is pretty much staying right in this space throughout the whole movement, okay? So now what I want you to do is, without turning, sink back and just turn your hands over. And then shift forward. Sink back and just turn your hands over. And then shift forward. Sink back, turn your hands over. And then shift forward. Sink back, turn the hands over. And shift forward. So now we're going to add just a little bit of turning into it. When you sink back, I want you to turn just a little bit to the left. As you do that, turn the ball over. And then shift forward, straightening up again. We're going to do the same thing to the right side, but you don't have to turn that far to the right. So we're going to sink back, turning just a little bit to the right. So we're sinking back our weight onto the left foot, but we're turning to the right, turning the ball over. And then shift forward, coming back to straight front. Sink back, turning just a little bit, turn the ball over, shift forward. Sink back, turning just a little bit to the right. Bring the ball forward. Sink back, turning to the left, a little bit more to the left. Bring the ball forward. Sink back, turning just a little bit to the right. Bring the ball forward. One more time each side. Back to the left. Bring the ball forward. Back to the right. And bring the ball forward. Okay? So that is essentially the move. But we're going to get into it a little bit differently. So, remember, it starts off facing this direction. Just because of the video, I'm starting off here. We ended up with ward off right. We ended up with ward off right here. Okay? But I'm going to come around here. So, from ward off right, left hand is going to come up underneath as if holding the ball. The first time we sink back, we're going to sink back and turn to the right just a little bit, but we're not going to roll the ball over. We're just going to sink back, drawing the ball back a little bit, and then let the ball spring forward again. Now we'll do the rollbacks. So down and back, past the left hip. Not really past the left hip, it's still right in front of my torso. And shift forward, bring the ball forward. Roll back, down and back, towards the right hip. Weights on the left foot, right hand to the top, bring the ball forward. And roll back to the left. Bring the ball forward. Roll back to the right. Bring the ball forward. One more time. Back to the left. Okay? When you're practicing this, just keep going back and forth. You don't have to worry about how many times you're doing this. In class, we'll do it a certain amount of times, which I'll show you. So let's do this from ward off right. Okay? Left hand is going to come up as if holding the ball. I'm going to sink back, turning to the right. That draws the ball back. Shift the weight forward, ball springs forward. Roll back to the left. The first thing I want to do with this ball is let it just release, just let it drop. And then as it's dropping, I'm going to shift the weight and roll it back. It's almost like the momentum of the down is creating the backward sweep. Left hand comes to the top. Shift the weight forward, ball springs forward. Roll back, down and back towards the right. You don't have to turn that far to the right. Right hand comes to the top, ball springs forward. Shift back, roll back to the left. Ball springs forward. Shift back, roll back to the right. Ball springs forward. And shift back, roll back to the left. Okay? I was going to show you how many times to do it. So let's go through it once with the quote-unquote proper number of times. Ward off. Left hand comes up, sinking back, draw the ball back. Shift forward, ball springs forward. Roll back, down and back to the left. Ball springs forward. Roll back, down and back to the right. Ball springs forward. Roll back, down and back to the left. And that's how many times we do it before we go into the next move. Okay? So if you want to think about the number of times after ward off, this first one, it's just kind of like a drawback. We're not actually rolling the ball. So it's drawback and then 1, 2, 3, and then we go into the next move. All right? Now, let me turn it and I'll do it from the back. So, as if I've just done ward off right. Left hand comes up, draw the ball back. Shift forward, ball springs forward. Roll back, down and back to the left. Ball springs forward. Roll back, down and back to the right. Ball springs forward. Roll back, down and back to the left. And that's where we'll go into the next move. Let's do it from this direction, as if we've just done ward off right. left hand comes up. So from this direction, you might be able to see more clearly that I'm sinking back onto my left foot, but turning to my right, drawing the ball back. Ball stays in front of the torso. Shift forward. Roll back, down and back to the left. Ball springs forward. Roll back, down and back towards the right. Ball springs forward. Roll back, down and back to the left. And then we go into the next move. You've already seen it from this direction, but let's do it one more time from here. So ward off, forming the ball, sink back, turning. Ball draws back, shift the weight forward, springs forward. Roll back, down and back to the left. Forward, roll back, down and back to the right. Forward, roll back to the left. And then we'll go into the next move. Okay? So that's rollbacks. Now you've probably heard me say this in class, but I highly, highly, highly recommend that when you're practicing, that you work on one move at a time. So when you're doing this move, feel free to do the rollbacks a whole bunch of times. And I'm not talking about 5 or 10 times. I'm talking about 20, 30, 40, 50, 793 times. Okay? Just keep going back and forth at a slower pace than this. Really go through the move, but just go back and forth, rolling the ball over. The more you do it, the more you'll internalize it and you won't have to think about all the parts of the moves. We want to get to this point where we're feeling the moves, where we're familiar with the feeling of the moves so that we can recreate the feeling of the move rather than the specific mechanics of it. This is where my feet go, this is where my arm goes, this goes here, I turn back this way, okay? This is not very Tai Chi-like. But if you get the feel for it, you can let go of all the brain stuff. I'm good at that. And just keep rolling back and forth, okay? So I highly urge you to practice one move at a time over and over and over repeatedly. You'll get that move down really well. Once you get it down, then you can start connecting it to the moves around that move. Okay?